Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you for telling this story. Margaret, I'm going to start with you. Where did this all begin for you?
Like I said before, you weren't here at the beginning, but 15 years ago, I made another film called Order of Myths that's centered around Mardi Gras in Mobile. There's a black Mardi Gras and a white Mardi Gras in Mobile. And we found out halfway through that the white queen that year was Helen Mayer from the Mayer family in the film. And then we found out after Mardi Gras that Stephanie Lucas, the black Mardi Gras queen, was descended from the Clotilda. So at that moment, we kind of realized the whole film was sort of around this relationship. So, and of course, at that point, you know, it hadn't been found yet. So about 5 years ago, there was an article in the paper that said they had found the ship, but actually it was the wrong ship. But we went back down there then and started filming like 2 years before they found the ship. And, you know, it was interesting because everyone always says, like, what if they hadn't found the ship? But like Joycelyn says in the movie, we kind of knew, like, right away it was about the community and not really. The ship is very important because we can talk about that. But, yeah, it was about the community.
Essie, talk about what Margaret said to you and how you got involved with Descendant.
Well, Margaret and I met, we were at a writer's residency together, and so we became friends first, and I knew she had very deep connections to the community and you know, the film that she had made many years before, so she just sort of had this tremendous access. And with a film like this, as you can imagine, trust and access are everything. And so, you know, the film started off, and maybe Mark can talk about this afterwards. It started off to be a different kind of a story that was going to involve both the white and the black residents in Mobile. And so, you know, when it became clear that we were not going to get access to everyone, I think that the way that she was thinking about how to tell the story and who she wanted to help tell the story changed. And she and I had been just sort of talking about it. And yeah, I mean, I think I came on about 3.5, 4 years ago. It was before the ship was found. So it was still at that moment where this, you know, the conversation was just starting around, you know, like the 1619 Project and Ta-Nehisi Coates and all these people that were really talking about how do we reframe the American origin story to put black people at the center. And so Margaret was very much excited about being a part of that conversation. And so that's sort of how she invited me in.
Talk about navigating how you were going to tell this story, and then talk about how finding the wreckage of the ship changed the story that you were going to tell, or did it not change it at all?
I mean, I think it was always about like following what happened with the characters, like seeing how Joycelyn changed, seeing how Vida changed, how they kind of grew into their own power. But like, I mean, a big point was realizing the Mayer family wouldn't talk to me because they were a huge part of the Order of Myths. Helen Mayer traveled with the movie, went to Sundance with the movie. So I did think they would speak to me. So that was, but I think like we don't know why they didn't talk to us, but I think because when you find the ship, that goes to the second part of your question, that's proof, and that possibly is a reparations case. So I think it was probably, we surmise, I mean, there's a lot of rumors.
Yeah, there are rumors that that if any of them spoke, they would be disinherited. We're not sure if that's true, but that's the rumor.
That's what they say.
Well, to Essie's point, like, how did you decide, like, who you would speak to help tell this story, and then talk about the access, and then getting trust? Because so much of people who talk to you, you've got to earn their trust.
I mean, I knew Lorna Woods from Order of Myths. We filmed her for that. She wasn't in the film, but I knew her from back then. And Kern Jackson, who wrote the piece with me, when using the word wrote a documentary, I never have ever given that credit before this film to writing, but we wrote it over 15 years at a coffee shop in Mobile where we would talk about all the things swirling around the world of this movie. And it sort of came from that. And then, yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of this was just very organic. And involving the community and like which parts they're going to read from Zora Neale Hurston, talking about why, who was reading what, that kind of thing.
I will just add, just in terms of on the trust question, just because I sort of when I joined, I think one of the things that I was first struck by, it was I think there was a false finding of the ship first, and so they had experienced the sort of the onslaught of media attention, and were kind of weary from people coming in and out and in and out, and one of the first things people said to me about Margaret is she just keeps coming and she's staying. And so, that's how you build trust. I mean, you don't show up for just the big moments. You come for the community meetings, you come for the celebrations. And so that's a massive part of how access, was gained.
It was a 4-year process.
Yeah.
Where did you start? Like, who was one of the first people that you started speaking to? And like, what
Emmett probably. Emmett was one of the first people that's actually in the film, and I guess Cleon Jones also, because we started just going to all of his. A lot of what we did is just go to community meetings, because as you guys can see, there's like a gazillion community meetings with people in their 70s and 80s happening. I mean, there's so many activists like swirling around this place with the environmental concerns and the alumni association, and so it was like you just start going to the meetings and just seeing what's up and like what people are talking about.
Yeah. This is 5 years of work. That's a lot of interviews, a lot of research. Like, talk about the editing process and putting that all together.
Well, I love layered stories. I love not simple stories, because I don't think anything is simple. And I think I always knew that I wanted the Zora Neale Hurston narrative to really be woven throughout. That was really important for me. From even like when we were trying to raise money for the movie, like that was one of the first things we shot, was one of the Zora Neale Hurston scenes, and I think it was hard. I mean, it was daunting to think there's all these different threads that weave through it with all these different people's journeys. It's a story about a community, but I work, Jeff Richmond, who also edited The Order of Myths, was one of the 2 editors. And then Mike Block, who's I bet there's a lot of filmmakers in the audience. So my other editor is a musician in a previous and current life. And so I think like having that kind of rhythmic, attitude toward editing was like super helpful. And I don't know if that sounds, but it really helps in terms of like figuring out ways to like edit, different threads together.
I mean, the film could have been 10 different films. I mean, and I think Mike's sense of rhythm and really leaning into the poetry of Zora, that, I think we decided we can't tell the whole story. I mean, that was really where that was a key moment. And just, the most powerful theme is sort of the empowering them to tell their own story. And so it just felt like Zora, I mean, it's sort of Kern Jackson is the modern day Zora Neale. And so to have her who had her own sort of history, not denied, but her book was hidden for anyway. So it was the right way to use to glue the different pieces together.
Yeah, and like also with Kern, like kind of like he had all these tapes, and like I'm talking to him for years, and he, when we shot his interview, he wanted to shoot it. He's a teacher at University of South Alabama, and he wanted it to be in this controlled setting, like shoot it in the chair's office and make it look all. And I was like, can we go in your office and like go through the tapes? And he just we didn't even know it was all there. And he starts like playing stuff on these old VHS tapes. And we were like, do not play that. Like, what is on this? Like, it was nuts when that was happening. The whole crew was freaking out, He had all this stuff, and he's a kind of crazy absent-minded professor. And I think I don't know, he hadn't thought to maybe say like I knew about some of it, but I did not know about all of it. Yeah.
Well, to Essie's point about the importance of telling your story, the one takeaway is like listening to stories from, our ancestors and the elders. Talk about that a little bit and the importance of... what our elders tell us?
I mean, I think particularly in African traditions. I mean, this is I think a true thing for all. But I think that what this story does is sort of, it's a testament to the power of oral traditions, of collective memory. Their collective memory is what got us here, and so our collective memory of this story is what will change history literally. And so I think I think it's just sort of a universal thing. I mean, this was literally just generation to generation passing a story down, and so it wouldn't die. And I think that's definitely a hope for us, is that this will encourage everyone to do the same with their own families.
And another question that you leave is like, what can I do? Like, I want to do something, right? Like, how many of you are sitting there thinking, what can I do?
Well, one of the glories of working with Participant is they have a whole impact team so when you're having like postpartum depression of like, oh, my film is over, what am I going to do? And the editor's like calling you every day, like, it's so sad. We actually like have a whole impact team that's like working on like getting things, like sort of amplifying what's already, I mean, God knows there's so many activists already in Africatown, but figuring out ways to support that work, because, in the moment the film ends, it's this sort of moment of, the city could decide to like, support Vita when she says, I want to be it, or it could just decide to take the money and run. So, but yeah, there's a lot going on. There's one thing that happened is with the plant, so the mayor's, it's hard to say this, like, so the mayor sold, the mayor's family, it's called Gulf Lumber, the plant that's around Africatown, the lumber company. They sold that to a multinational corporation called Canfor. And it's interesting timing. Suddenly they're moving out of Africatown now. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. These people are shameless. They're incapable of being shamed. And so, the hope is that, facts don't shame them, that bad PR with a platform that 220 million people will have access to might do the trick. And so, and what we will be saying to all of them is, tell this story. I mean, that's what we are telling. This story will literally change history for them. We are Participant, and our partners are helping connect all of the different activist groups to national partners and local partners who are going to help in pretty profound ways. With the environmental justice piece of this, with the descendants connecting to other descendants, and there will be opportunities. We're going to obviously let everyone know where they can send money. I mean, they need resources. So tell the story, send money.
And also, like it said, I mean, there's different like museums opening in the community very soon. So, and Nat Geo is as we speak, the ship is very intact. So that's part of the story that's still to come.
Yeah. And the documentary screened at Sundance, and after Sundance, Higher Ground, which is the Obama's company, came on board. Like, talk about that and what they said about why Descendant really resonated with them.
I mean, we went with the film to Martha's Vineyard Festival, and they spoke before the film, and sort of really surprised the audience by coming on stage. And I was just like, wow, they're so much more articulate. I'm glad I'm a filmmaker, because they're so the way they talked about, I was like, wow, like, can I write all this down? Because I want to their speeches were incredible. And just like they spoke very powerfully about like storytelling being a revolutionary act. And it was very impactful. And I just think like having their endorsement, like, people will be curious, hopefully, about the story. I mean, it's a dream team. I don't even know what to say.
It's just the resources that they have access to, and the ways that we can ask for help, and that they can help, and leadership training. I mean, there are all sorts of ways that we're gonna lean on them, but just their absolute love and passion for the story, and like Margaret said, to the power of all of us and all of our family stories.
But that said, like the community still, with all of this, like they still, like, you know, the community is still in this like place that, yeah.
I think you're gonna say something else.
No. What was I gonna say?
I think you're gonna say something about Questlove.
Questlove is also a producer on this. Let's talk about him then.
Well, Questlove is a descendant. I don't know how many people have seen his episode on Finding Your Roots, but he discovered in 2017 that he was a descendant from the Clotilda too, and so he's a producer on the film, and it's been we've been witnessing him mostly over Zoom because it was during COVID, like getting to know his family, you know, so that's been really powerful.
Yeah. This was basically your backyard. You know, what was that like for you as a filmmaker to go through and listen to these stories and also tell this story of like, I grew up here, this is my home?
I mean, this is the fourth film I've made in Alabama. Most of my work has been set in Alabama. And I think, like, God, and when I went to college, I wanted to get as far away as I could. But, like, you know, I think there's something about, wow. Like, I just, like, I mean, my dad is a country songwriter. Like, there's something about, like, storytelling in the South where I am very biased to think that Southerners are great storytellers. And I was just like, I always find stories there that I'm like completely obsessed with and fascinated by. And, you know, I think it's very interesting that this is the only slave ship to have ever been discovered. You know, I mean, God knows there were a lot of ships, and, you know, why don't we want to find them? And so I don't know, it makes me think about how many other things, like, yeah.
You talked about postpartum, you know, what is it like now having this documentary out there for people to watch, to talk about, to go in and look at the history? Well,
I love the conversations. Like, I love, I think, like, people in America and in the South particularly, like, don't want to talk about this. Like, the South needs therapy. We all need therapy around this. And so I welcome the group therapy, I think, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and we were just talking about this over dinner. I mean, there are places where this film won't be able to be shown. I mean, and so it feels, I think, as the further we get away from, you know, when this first got into the world, it feels urgent. It feels incredibly important for people to see this and for us to be talking about it.
Well, to that, what makes Netflix like the perfect home for people to see it, to talk about it? And
I mean, it just, it's just, I mean, a lot of people have, I mean, it's the obvious, like, you know, a lot of people, yeah, the reach, and yeah.
Amazing.
And they're just wonderful partners.
So what do you want this audience to take away from Descendant tonight?
I just want a conversation. I don't know. I don't know if people have questions, but like, we want the film to be a conversation spark. We want people to care about the story and it to like mobilize other communities.
Well, Descendant is coming to Netflix next month on October the 21st. Margaret, Essie, thank you so much, and thank you to everybody coming out. So.